Welcome to RockingWrestling.com, and this is the Rocking Wrestling Radio Show with your host with the most, Nicholas Cross, live in literally sunny Chicago, Illinois. And today is Sunday, May 11th, and today is Mother's Day. You'll notice that by its absence, we were missing the Smackdown report on our website this week, and the reason is because I held off until Mother's Day to give the very special Smackdown review, and of course, we're going to give a few other things that's been on my mind. But first and foremost, let me say this to all of my great fans all over the United States and a little bit into Canada. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to you who have mothers, and happy Mother's Day to you mothers who are listening. It's been a fantastic Mother's Day for me and mine. Had a great time with my mother, enjoyed the day, enjoyed the weekend, as a matter of fact, with my mother, and have had some pretty cool times with her as today ebbed along. We went out and took some time to look at a nice lake, and we took some time to enjoy some good meals and a little bit of shopping and had a great time. Well, I hope that you guys had a great time as well, as this is the day that we honor our mother. It's the day that we uplift her, encourage her, uphold her, tell her that she's great, thank her for all that she did for us. And if you guys had a mother as wonderful as I did, she deserves it. She earned it. She worked hard for it. And if you guys had a mother like Mr. T, you know that she worked hard for it as well, as we saw at the WrestleMania Hall of Fame induction. And wasn't that a classic? And of course, you know, a lot of people say a lot of things about Mr. T and his little rendition concerning his mother. I think it was 30 to 50 minutes of a rant about his mother. I mean, he talked about everything from the cervix to the universe concerning his mother. But to be honest, doesn't she deserve it? Doesn't she deserve the time that we have to give her to thank her for all that she's done in our lives? And, of course, many of you guys know that every dream that I ever had was fulfilled thanks to my mother. And so we owe it to our mothers to take not only this day, but every day to give them some type of honor. And while we're honoring our mothers, we also need to honor the men and women in the squared circle every single week. Guys and gals galore who are taking their time every week to entertain us, to give us a great show, to bring us together under the banner of entertainment and put together one heck of an evening. And that's what wrestling is all about. And I'm saying that to say this. I think it's very important that we go to WWE shows, that we attend live events, that we take the time to spend as much money as we can possibly muster together to support these things. But aside from WWE, there are thousands of organizations all over the world. Small organizations that wrestle inside of moose lodges and National Guard armories and high school gymnasiums. And these organizations need our support more than most. They need our support because most of the time one guy's funding the entire event. He's making his family suffer, and I know that sounds horrible, but ultimately it's because of a dream. It's because of a dream that I had when I was a youngster, that millions of others have had over the years, and it's a dream that you guys can help bring to fruition. That's right. All you have to do is go out on Saturday night to the National Guard Armory, give $10, $5, $8, $7, $15 for a ticket, and enjoy a wrestling show. No, you're not going to see The Rock, you're not going to see Stone Cold Steve Austin, but you are going to see some very talented individuals and some pretty cool stuff. So this is my portion where I tell you guys, as a former independent professional wrestler who had a great opportunity to wrestle all over the Southeast, a little bit in the Midwest, you guys need to take your time, and the West Coast, you guys need to take your time to go out and enjoy what these organizations have to offer. Without you, they're nothing, and you need to believe that they understand that. They put it out there every single week because they want you guys to keep coming back. And let me tell you something, it's worth the price of admission. And I feel as though that, you know, without these organizations, we don't have a WWE today. So get out there, get some support, get some time, take your family, enjoy a hot dog, a hamburger, some nachos with cheese, and have a great time on Saturday, Friday, Tuesday, whatever night it is. Now, moving right along, I don't know if you guys were with us on Friday night, but we were experiencing Smackdown. That's right. And I'm not going to get into too much. Of course, we're watching the incline of one Cesaro. We're also seeing the incline of Rusev with my lady Lana, and she is smoking like ever. We're also seeing some pushes in other directions, such as Bad News Barrett, which is a good thing. It's about time. He deserves it more than probably anybody in the industry right now. But we're seeing a few other things that are interesting to me. Number one, let's get into this Shield thing. I'm not sure where WWE is going. I don't know why Roman Reigns is the only Shield guy that gets a win on SmackDown, because Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins were both defeated. Of course, Seth Rollins was defeated by Batista, and Dean Ambrose was defeated by Sheamus. Dean Ambrose match was pretty good. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from Dean Ambrose, but of course you understand that the guy's selling from the continual assault that he's received from Evolution over the past few weeks. Seth Rollins, I thought, put on a heck of a show against Batista. Unfortunately, there was a count-out involved, and Batista got the V. Of course, Batista deserves the V, and of course it's all in the nature of keeping the talent roster happy. Beyond that, Roman Reigns, the challenge of his life, so many guys would say, went against Mark Henry, someone who is not very respected and someone who is often overlooked, and Roman Reigns defeated Mark Henry. I don't have a problem with Roman Reigns defeating Mark Henry. I just think that the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. needs the same push that Roman Reigns is getting. Roman Reigns is phenomenal. He's going to be WWE Champion, World Heavyweight Champion one day. But there's other guys that are involved here that brought all of them to the dance. It wasn't just Roman Reigns. It was the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. collaboration. I think WWE really needs to focus on Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins as much as they're focusing on Roman Reigns. Remember, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not going to stay together forever. And because of that, we know that one day S.H.I.E.L.D. has an opportunity to have a great feud against one another. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in Florida Championship Wrestling, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins put together one heck of a card down there. And they worked their tails off, and it was an outstanding match. It was so good that if you looked out on the stage there, you saw Bo Dallas, or Bo Rotundo at the time, sitting there enjoying it, and you know that kid's a phenomenal wrestler. So the S.H.I.E.L.D. has an opportunity, in my opinion, to be the totality of the future of the WWE, with the exception of a few guys that are going to be coming up. But these three individuals could put on some heckified matches, if I can say it in a PG form, and they could really entertain some audiences. Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose can go, and they put on some matches that are phenomenal with one another. If you were to throw Roman Reigns in the middle of this mix, who needs to tighten up on his spear just a little bit more, don't be afraid of hurting guys, but really plow into you, get some Goldberg spearing going on here, I think that you would see a really cool dynamic when they finally break up. But WWE's got to make the moves right now. Of course, I'm not a WWE executive, never have been, but I feel as though that they need to make the moves right now to prepare these guys for whatever is in store for the future. Moving along, away from the S.H.I.E.L.D., you've got to get into a place where you consider that there are other things going on in WWE right now, and those other things are really Bray Wyatt. Of course, you got these guys that are with Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, and they're really good wrestlers in their own right. You don't see much from Eric Rowan, but, Luke Harper's a great guy. And the problem I'm having here is Bray Wyatt is phenomenal. He's got this unorthodox style. He's different. He's odd in the way that he does things. But we're pairing him with John Cena, and I'm not a big John Cena guy because I think that John Cena has seen his day. But at the same time, who better to pair Bray Wyatt with than the top guy? And I think that it's necessary to look deeply at this situation to see that Bray Wyatt is on a push of a lifetime. They've got him paired with the number one guy in WWE. I don't care. I mean, Daniel Bryan, we're going to talk about him in just a minute. He's the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Should be the number one guy, but unfortunately John Cena is still viewed as that. And they've got Bray Wyatt doing this thing with John Cena. So as much as we're not a big John Cena fan, he is a hard worker. He's a good wrestler. I'm not going to deny any of that. Great entertainer, and he cares about his performance. He cares about you guys. He cares about the audience. But we've got to consider that Bray Wyatt is about to move into some astronomical areas. You don't go from wrestling John Cena on a card to all of a sudden down the Fandango in 1 week and your career not have any suffering. So just consider that Bray Wyatt is in the move, and he's actually in the picture of the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, that was a match, Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, Eric Rowan versus the Usos, who aren't getting credit enough either, and John Cena. Of course, the Usos are the WWE Tag Team Champions, and they are good. Actually, these guys are good. They're good wrestlers. They have come from a great family lineage. Rikishi Fatu is an amazing wrestler. And, of course, there are other Samoan wrestlers out there that have been phenomenal over the years. Everyone from Siki to Afa to anybody and everybody who's been out there, really. So, I'm really impressed with the Usos. And John Cena, of course, he was involved in it. And, he's John Cena. I think he needs some time off, and I think he needs to turn heel. So that'll take us to the main event of the evening, which wasn't the main event of the evening, but it was the main event of the evening, and it was Daniel Bryan, and it was all that's going on with the Daniel Bryan picture. Of course, you got to consider Daniel Bryan. It wasn't such a big push on SmackDown, but the essence is still there. And I want to talk about this for a moment. I was listening to Talk is Jericho on Podcast One. I'm sorry, I forgot exactly what it was. And this is a really good interview that Jericho was putting on. But I got to be honest with you, I disagree with Jericho, and I know that sounds obscene. Why would you disagree with Chris Jericho, the Ayatollah of rock and roll? And I love Chris Jericho. He's a phenomenal wrestler, phenomenal entertainer, a great guy in life. But the thing is he's talking about how Kane and Daniel Bryan wasn't the greatest thing, and that this and that. But I disagree. I think that Kane and Daniel Bryan is a really good thing, because I think that Kane upped the ante a little bit, that he did some good stuff, and I think that what we're going to see, as I talked about before, is coming into the next event, Payback. I think what we're going to see is another big gimmick match. There's rumors going around all over the place about what in the world Daniel Bryan and Kane are going to do. Well, I got to be honest with you. I think maybe a Buried Alive match would be in the cards. Of course, there's a lot of talk about a lot of different things. There's a casket match. There's a Buried Alive match. There's an Inferno match. And wouldn't that be pretty cool? But I don't know if it's a main event type event, but it would be pretty cool to see Daniel Bryan in an Inferno match, to see how he would deal with the fire around the ring. Of course, that's something that not a lot of guys these days get involved in the independent circuit, is this crazy gimmick matches, because like I said, these indies are small, and it's very hard for them to get the money that they need to put together these phenomenal things. Well, I feel as though that an Inferno match would be pretty cool. Maybe not main event status, but we'll see what happens. But it's most likely going to be a Buried Alive match. I feel as though that that's where they're going. That's a little bit of the information that I got from a friend of mine who may be working closely with the organization. And so I'm thinking that that's the direction they're headed. With that said, SmackDown was pretty good, all in all, and I was pretty impressed by the program. I just feel as though that SmackDown could amp it up a little bit more, and we could see a lot of fresh stuff on SmackDown. The idea of SmackDown is the overflow of Raw, and the idea of Raw is the overflow of that last pay-per-view. Every month, you can guarantee Raw is going to be the biggest show, even though it's 3 androgynous hours of powerful, impactful entertainment that really sometimes gets old. Let's get a 2-hour format, and I'll be okay. Nevertheless, it's still Raw, and on SmackDown, we need to see these guys pushing even harder to be even more entertaining. I love SmackDown, I love Raw, I love WWE, but this next segment isn't about WWE, is it? No, we're talking about TNA. Jim Ross on the Ross Report over at Podcast One was talking about the decline of TNA. And, of course, anybody who knows anything about wrestling, you know that their deal with Spike TV, is coming up here in the fall. It looks like, just as Jim Ross has stated, just as everybody who is a media analyst of professional wrestling has stated, and I will state right now, it looks like TNA has no leverage for their TV deal. And, of course, when you have no leverage, what can you possibly do? You can't go into the negotiation table expecting anything to go your way. And most forecasters are saying that TNA is actually going to lose their place on Spike TV. And the reason is because they don't have creative. Jim Ross on Podcast One stated these same things last Wednesday when he was speaking to Shawn Michaels. Dixie Carter went on Twitter, and she rebutted that by saying that Jim Ross clearly don't know what the heck he's talking about. Well, Dixie, I got to be honest with you. I've been in the wrestling business for some 20 years. You've been in the wrestling business for a few years. Let me inform you something, sweetie. You guys do not know what you're doing. You are copying the WWE to a T, which in a good wrestling market, no one would copy the WWE. They would be the alternative to the WWE. It would be a place where you can go and find a different storyline. WWE features a bearded world heavyweight champion. TNA features the same guy, the ultimate underdog with a long Duck Dynasty-looking beard. WWE features all of these cool little gimmick things, and the TNA is featuring the same stuff. We're in the middle of all this battle with an owner gimmick and the COO, and, of course, Stephanie McMahon over in WWE. And in TNA, we're doing the same exact promos. It's nothing but WWE Junior, and that's not going to work. Did you see how good the wrestling market was when WWE and WCW were competing with one another? It was absolutely unbelievable. Do you know why? Because it was competition. It wasn't collaboration. It wasn't mimicry. It was competition. They were not working together. They weren't putting on the same show. Everything was opposite. WWE had its things going on. WCW had its things going on. Dixie Carter, you want to compete with WWE? You've got to be an alternative to WWE. You guys know that, of course, Global Force Wrestling will be coming up pretty soon, and I'm excited about this Jeff Jarrett thing. There's a lot of talk about what Jeff Jarrett's going to do. There's a lot of little nuances that are slipped in and out of there throughout the internet world about where Jeff Jarrett's going to go and how this is going to work out. I don't care, to be honest with you. I just know that Jeff Jarrett has Toby Keith's money, and he's going to go to work on it. And, of course, it's going to be exciting because you know that Jeff Jarrett understands the wrestling business. A lot of people don't understand that creatively Jeff Jarrett is a smart guy. When Jeff Jarrett was involved in TNA, he was the alternative to the WWE. It did better. You remember TNA had the 6-sided ring or 8-sided, whatever it was. It was crazy. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And they had these Destination X or whatever they were matches where there was this giant X hanging over the ring and people were climbing over these things. They were the biggest bumps, the coolest things. And it wasn't all about old school wrestlers. Well, Jeff Jarrett takes his name off the thing. Old school wrestlers become the party show and everything gets ridiculous. TNA is on its way out unless they determine that they're going to change their booking method and they hire someone who has the ability to really create good story, and these wrestlers deserve that. TNA is full of talent. They have some of the most talented wrestlers that you could ever see in your entire life. Unfortunately, all of those talents are either unhealthy or their contracts are coming to an end, and when those contracts end, they are gone. Look at AJ Styles. Look at Cowboy James Storm. Kurt Angle, for the love of Pete. Sting, which we're going to talk about that in just a minute, and by the way, that just gave me goosebumps just to mention that guy. So, we're in this place in professional wrestling where we have WWE, WWE Junior, and we need some competition that gives us an alternative. Unfortunately, right now, that is UFC. That is cage fighting. But that's not what the wrestling market needs because that's not professional wrestling. We need a place where Brock Lesnar, when he's tired of WWE, when CM Punk, when he's tired of WWE, when whoever is tired of WWE, they can go and make a competitive salary and still be booked in an entertaining way that showcases and highlights their skills to the best of their ability. With that said, how many of you guys are feeling it for Sting? You remember at WrestleMania 30? He was at the WrestleCon thing, and he gave the little speech, and he said, 31 is my new favorite number. Of course, that was a sign. That was a hint to WrestleMania 31. There is no confirmed contracts. There is no signing, but I will say this. Sting has been in the middle of talking to WWE for the past 3 weeks. And what's so exciting about that to me is the fact that you know the inevitable is going to happen. Sting himself will be a WWE superstar by the end of 2014. And isn't that awesome? Now, let's stop right here. Let's not expect that Sting's going to come in and win any World Heavyweight Championships. I think that WWE has gone away from the tradition of the older guy coming in and dominating. But I do think that Sting's going to come in and do something extraordinary. I don't know. Let's look ahead at WrestleMania 31. The Undertaker lost the streak to Brock Lesnar, which, by the way, was okay with me now that I know the whole story. But what about WrestleMania 31? The Undertaker losing the streak is not a retirement match. What would be an ideal retirement match? The Phenom of WCW past versus the Phenom of WWE current. I know that it sounds obscure and obscene and a little far-fetched, but in reality, what would give the fans the ultimate show? When the top mainstay of WCW squares off one-on-one with the top mainstay of WWE. The two of the biggest names in professional wrestling headlining WrestleMania, and it be a retirement event. Would that not be astronomical? So let's just pretend, let's put on our thinking caps, let's go ahead off into our creative closets, and let's imagine what would happen if that took place. Of course, let's also imagine what would happen if Sting were in the locker room. You know where Sting came up from? Think about the late 70s with the Ultimate Warrior, the Blade Runners. Think about the early 80s to mid 80s when Sting was coming up with this new Venice Beach, California kind of cool thing, or wherever it was he was from, I don't even know. And he had this bleach blonde high top haircut, and he was spiked everywhere. And then imagine the late 80s when Sting really came into his own. He became the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. The early 90s, the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. The mid 90s, a little bit of a disappearing act. The late 90s, all the way into the 2000s, world champion after world champion after world champion after world champion. This guy has a wealth of knowledge. What would it do to a WWE locker room to have Sting sitting in the back, helping, inspiring, encouraging, teaching, developing, scrutinizing. How would you feel if you were sitting under the tutelage of one Steve Borden, a guy who has seen it and done it in the WW or WCW and the NWA, as well as many other smaller promotions? Speaking of guys that have seen it and done it, and this will be our closing segment of the Smackdown report, and this is totally unrelated to Smackdown at the moment, just as the Sting thing was. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. It is reported that Vince McMahon and Triple H, on a real talk level, are in the middle of a confrontation, as it were, over Ric Flair returning to WWE television. Of course, we know that Batista is going to be leaving to go promote his new Marvel movie. We'll get into that next week. And as he's gone, we know that the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, has been approached by Triple H to replace him in Evolution. Of course, there's also other reports out there that Sheamus will be joining Evolution as well. Now, this brings us to an entertaining thought as we can see the evolution of Evolution. This is the Four Horsemen all over again, except now Ric Flair is going to be James J. Dillon. That is, if Ric Flair can meet the requirements that are broadcast by Triple H. Now, I want you to hear this. This is how family-oriented the WWE has become, and I am really impressed by the demands that Triple H has given Ric Flair. Check this out. Triple H has reported that he will allow Ric Flair to return to WWE television under the pretense that Ric Flair gets his house in order. He's going to have to cut out a lot of partying, he's going to have to get his family affairs in order, and he's going to have to get his life in check. That means that he's going to have to pay off some debts, he's going to have to get things figured out with his family, and he's going to have to walk away from the alcohol scene. This is really impressive to me because it's teaching our youngsters that we're not just going to allow anything in our organizations, and in retrospect, we're not going to allow anything into our lives. This is what I really like about WWE, then, now, and forever. The fact that it's went PG, and the fact that we're not just allowing any old crud to come into our organization. If you don't believe me, ask CM Punk. Well, guys, check this out. This was Nicholas Cross, your host with the most, and I'm right here in sunny Chicago, Illinois on Mother's Day. So check this out. I want you guys to go on the Twitter, and I want you guys to tell us, what did you do for Mother's Day? If you don't go on the Twitter, you need to go over there on the Facebook. You need to let us know, what in the world did you do for your mother? I'm not going to tell you what I did for my mother because, really, it's none of your business. But you guys could tell me what you did for your mother. Actually, I'll tell you what I did for my mother. We went out to walk on a very nice lake. We had some very nice lunch, and we did a little bit of nice shopping, and it was just a nice time. Now, I want to hear what you did. Did you take your mother to the lake to go fishing? Did you take your mother to the lake to go swimming with the fishes? Let's get on the Twitter, let's get on the Facebook, and let's hear about what you guys are doing. Until next time, rockinwrestling.com, Rocking Wrestling Radio with your host, Nicholas Cross. Check it out.